Let's go do this podcast. What's going on, Star Wars fans?
Hello there.
I wanted to welcome everybody today to our new podcast for 2024. I have a good friend of mine here today, Mr. Nick Powell. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. How you doing, Ron?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Been
Thanks
doing
for
all
having
right?
me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Doing good. It's a new year.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, 23 was pretty cool for Star Wars.
It was.
We had some really cool things come out with Ahsoka and Mandalorian 3 and Bad Batch, which will be really cool to see that. I think that's probably going to be one of the first ones that comes out this year.
Yeah.
Which will be awesome.
We also got a lot of good things to look forward to, I think, too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
With announcements that happen in 23.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So I met Nick through a mutual friend, told me he was a Star Wars fan, so we chatted a little bit and actually met him for the first time at Star Wars Celebration, which was pretty awesome. So we chatted there and hung out for a little bit, but got him on here, and we're going to talk some Star Wars. So anybody that doesn't know you, give a little background of, sort of like your Star Wars history, how you got into this.
All right. Well, my name's Nick. So my Star Wars history is probably similar to a lot of people. My parents were into it as kids. They were probably about 4 or 5 years old when the original came out. So they had a pretty similar track as I did, because I was about 3 or 4 when Phantom Menace came out. But I do recall, so I looked it up before I came in here.
Oh, nice.
I remember how I saw Star Wars for the first time.
Oh, really?
So there was like television airing of it on the TBS Superstation.
Oh, nice.
Is what it used to be called.
Yep.
And so I went on YouTube and I looked up the like marketing for that. And so I recall I would have been like 3 or 4. My parents had been scrambling through like the VHS drawer or whatever on to see like what was cool to be taped over.
Okay.
And then they popped it in like right in time to tape
nice.
A New Hope.
Okay.
Which at that point, probably like 98 or 99 would have been when it was on TV. So it was like special edition, that sort of thing. They were showing it because that was going in the theater right after Phantom Menace or something to roll out Star Wars. So I remember watching it on like that tape because it had it like my parents had Sharpied it onto the tape. And so I'd have to fast forward through all the commercials and all that kind of stuff. And then I recall, and obviously it was like, I guess I probably didn't know what I was watching being that young, but thinking like, oh my God, this is insane. And I would just watch it over and over. And then I remember going, we were in the grocery store one time at Econo Foods in Cresco, Iowa. And I remember the aisle, it's like a corner aisle, and there was big, every single rental VHS was the Phantom Menace. Like it had just come out on VHS. Yeah. I remember going like, saw a blue lightsaber out of what I didn't know was Obi-Wan Kenobi's hands. Is like, that's the thing I've been watching. So we rented it. Rest was history. I was obsessed from then on. And then I remember a friend of ours had given us, there were these like the VHS trilogy before the special edition came out where it was like, this is your last chance to own the original trilogy. And it has like characters on it on the covers. Yep. So I think like A New Hope was Vader, Empire was Yoda. I'm not positive what Return of the Jedi was, but they were all like the original screenings of the original trilogy. Okay. And I wore those out. And then by the time I wore those out, it was time for Attack of the Clones. That was probably the first one I saw in a theater.
Okay.
Because I would have been probably 6 or 7 years old. And then the big one for me was Revenge of the Sith, because at the time, that was supposed to be it.
Right.
So that was it's like a huge deal. And I went to that with my mom when I was 9. We were like second in line to see it on opening day.
Nice.
didn't realize as a kid that front row of the movie theater isn't actually a very great spot, but I had to be right in the front row. Watched it. That was like a huge moment, and again, like wore that out whenever we got it home. But anyway, it's a long-winded thing to say.
No, that's cool.
It's been a long ride, but
yeah.
And then in between that, like at that time, you know, comics and novels were getting printed like all the time. And that's how I kind of kept up with the lore.
Yeah.
And that kind of got me like obsessive about lore. And it just became my thing. Like I put probably more energy into that, learning that than I have anything else. But
that's pretty awesome. That's a cool story. I mean, it's, you know, again, like you said, sort of ending on that last movie.
Yeah.
You know, and it's fun because again, even though you knew what was going on, I think it's still sort of cool when Anakin, you know, when we see all that stuff happening with Anakin, which is really neat, I think. And I think, you know, when it first came out, you know, a lot of people my age were like sort of dissing it, you know, and Hayden Christensen and then we need a different actor and this and that. But what I think is really cool when Obi-Wan came out with Ahsoka, I mean, people are going crazy for him right now, which is really cool.
Which is probably long overdue. I'm sure he had a rough time, you know, in those years. But I think it was different too as a kid. Not really. I wasn't paying attention to the acting.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, or the, you know, I didn't have like a predisposed, I guess, hope of how it would go.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was just like, what's going to happen?
Right.
As a unaffected 9-year-old.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the lore.
Yeah.
You know, once you get into it, and like we were talking about before we got on here, is, you know, Clone Wars and Rebels and the books and stuff, and they just deep dive into these characters where we get to be like, oh, this is a really cool character. Oh, now we get a little bit more backstory.
Right.
You know, and find out what type of fighting techniques they have, or what, you know, what a little bit more diving into Mace and, you know, different things like that, and Grievous and, you know, which I thought was really cool. And I think they did a great job with that, you know.
I do too.
Now that Filoni has gotten that new promotion, I'm hoping that we're going to get more, you know, good, solid Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's also really conscious stuff coming from him, or, you know, a lot of people like him who are very conscious of the fact that it means a lot to people. Yeah. And that it, like, not just that Star Wars means a lot to people, but that people are genuinely interested. Probably more people than you'd think are genuinely interested into like the deeper stuff. Oh yeah. You know, which every single person that you and I have seen at Celebration like loves it. You know? So,
and that's the cool thing about that celebration is that it's just Star Wars fans. You know, you can go to Comic-Con or MegaCon and those are great too. And a lot of the Star Wars actors and actresses and stuff and characters are there, which is really neat. But that is just Star Wars. I mean, there's 80,000 people for the weekend that come in and out of there that are huge Star Wars fans.
Well, even, you know, like the costumes, right? People have multiple costumes for multiple days. Yeah. And most of the costumes are like deep dive.
Oh, the cosplay is insane.
Yeah, very rarely is it like a main character that is like way done up. Obviously, there are a lot of main characters, but you'll see like very specific clone trooper cosplay there, or really specific like characters in lore or whatever that haven't maybe made it on screen yet. Yeah. So I think that's really cool. Me and my buddy who you'd met, Austin, we thought that was insane. We took like 1 million pictures with people. Oh yeah, it's just like I gotta have this. But and
like you said, the detail and the thought that goes into some of these is insane, because it is, you know, like someone that they maybe haven't seen. All of the High Republic, and all the, you know, Revan and all that stuff. It's like nobody knows who they are unless you're a huge Star Wars fan. You know, you're looking at going, who's that guy there? Yeah, he looks like Darth Vader, but it's not Darth Vader. You know, which I think is really cool that Dave has brought some of these new. Look at Ahsoka.
Yeah.
You know,
biggest thing now,
right?
You know?
You know, case in point. I mean, at the beginning, people were like, you know, and as the animation continued to get better and better, you know, what a great job they did. But to build her character and to become the Jedi that she did, and then to walk away from the Jedi Order, that I thought that was a big move.
Yeah.
you know, for them to do
biggest.
that. Yeah. You know, and season 7 was, I thought, outstanding, you know, for Clone Wars. But again, for them to bring her back as a live action, and for so many people to, I mean, it was a great series.
Yeah. And I've always thought it was cool, particularly after season 7 had come out, how it's sort of the opposite end of the spectrum to Anakin's walk.
Yeah.
So he goes away. He doesn't walk away. He burns the whole thing down.
Right.
She walks away, and still, even after she got, you know, done dirty, came back to help.
Yeah.
You know, prior to all that going down, but she came back to help and said, I'm not cool with the whole thing, but
right.
I know what it means to be one.
Yeah.
You know, and she's still, throughout her life now in this series, like, still carries it with her.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's kind of like her and Anakin sort of are a dichotomy of each other in that way. And I think the show kind of helped with that, especially with the, you know, the episode where she's in the world between worlds with him, and they kind of have to understand each other as who they are now. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, and I think it is cool. And they did a great job with that, too. I mean, live action Clone Wars with Rex and the young Ahsoka and just the folding the arms. And, you know, I think they really did a good job. But I just love what they've done with this character, you know, and like you said, and she's still good, you know, in the live action, and she's still, you know, in the Clone Wars, she's great. But I think it's really cool that they've brought her into this, and like you said, she's still one of the ones that's like, hey, you know what, I'm going to come here and help you guys out because I still believe in this, and she still carries, you know, her, you know, lightsabers, and you know, I mean, for the most part, anybody that does see her is going to look at her and be like, oh, she's a Jedi. Right. You know, but I think it's really cool what they've done, and in that with the Mortis gods, and, you know, which, and again, there's so much stuff out there right now that everybody's talking. Oh, here, this is what's going to happen in that. You know, it's season 2 of Ahsoka and season 4 of Mandalorian, but it might be that big, huge movie that Dave's doing,
right?
You know, where they're going to put it all together.
Yeah.
I think it's the Tales of the Jedi. I would love to see them do a Balin.
Yeah.
You know, because that Dooku and the Ahsoka were so good.
I think he could fit right into the Balin heavy, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know how old he is. I know that actor was 57, Ray Stevenson, which sucks. That you know,
crazy.
But I wonder how old Balin Skoll is in the lore.
Yeah,
because you know, he would have had to have known some of these like big players.
Oh, well, he knew Anakin.
Yeah,
you know, he tells her that.
Yeah,
you know,
and are him and Anakin like similar in age to where they came up together?
Right.
You know, or is he more, you know, Obi-Wan's age?
Right.
You know, depending on where he came up, he might have a very different experience with the Jedi.
Yeah, because he's Ahsoka in Ahsoka, the live action, I think she's like 45.
Okay.
Ish.
Yeah.
So I mean, it'd be interesting to see where he probably is sort of like Anakin's age, I would guess. Yeah. Maybe, you know.
So what is he, like 50 something when he dies?
Yeah.
25-ish when he turns.
Yeah. So it should be. I think that would be cool because what a great character that they brought on. Again,
he did so good.
Yeah.
I mean, and I feel like there's a lot of depth to Balin Skoll, to where he obviously is not. He's not like a Jedi anymore. You know.
No.
He's self-proclaimed not Jedi, but I think he respects it a great deal.
Oh, absolutely. You can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And to where, you know, he even says like it would be a real shame to kill her, you know, because there's so few Jedi left. But I think that's a really cool thing to explore in particular, when Inquisitors or, you know, especially the Sith, but other villains have come along. They have no time for Jedi.
Right.
They want them off the face of the universe. Yep. Where he's like, you know, not my thing. Weaker than me. Right. But they're important. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe he thinks that the Jedi should have been different. You know, who knows? We don't know yet. Right. So.
Yeah, I love his stance too.
Yeah,
he's got that new, which again, I think Dave and I don't know if John had part of this or not, but you know, they've done such a good job with Mandalorian and bringing, you know, these characters in and giving them their own walk, and giving them their own, presence, and I think they did a great job with Balin like that too.
Yeah, he very much has that knight's.
Yes.
That knight's stance, heavy sword stance. And I thought it was interesting when in that last confrontation with Ahsoka, how he tells her, like, you can't defeat me. And she says, don't have to. Or I don't know if she says anything. But it's interesting because I would have not thought, I guess, that she couldn't beat him. You know? That's why I want to know more about him. Like, what's going on here? I don't think Dave would throw that in.
No, and she did say that I don't have to, because again, she just needed to get past him. To get to where she was going. So I think that would be cool. And again, and that's the thing where I really loved about Tales of the Jedi is when that episode with Ahsoka where he's just pounding her. And so she survives Order 66, and that's the only way she survived Order 66.
Because she got drilled.
So again, we know she's a badass fighter. We know she's got a good heart. So again, I think it would be, and you see all that stuff on social media, who would beat who, Obi-Wan at his prime against so-and-so at their, and it's like.
And there's the other case to be made too, talking about, we had mentioned Freddie Prinze Jr.'s takes prior to this, but similar to that, where sometimes it's not up to, who's got the best skill. Sometimes it's not about who's the most badass person on the block. It's kind of about like the cosmic order of things sometimes. And I feel like most of the time Star Wars does a great job of making that felt. Like you can feel, even in the first ever lightsaber duel, Obi-Wan and Vader, you can feel like there's no music to it. It's tense. There's something going on there, not sure, and then Obi-Wan evaporates. Like, what's that about? Well, we'll find out,
Well, and I think it is about the collective, because again, when Palpatine's talking to Luke going, your friends are done. I knew all about this stuff, but again, they have the collective, and they made friends with the Ewoks. And literally that's what turns it around. And same with Jar Jar. He comes in and he's this goofy thing, but again, he plays a huge part
in everything.
So I think it's cool. Like you said, you don't have to be the baddest person on the block or the best swordsman or the best force user, to win. Palpatine and Yoda. I've read so much stuff where you could go either way. I think good would have triumphed in that, but again, I also think the one thing I saw actually most recently is he knew Luke and Leia were going to be born. And he had to protect them. So he could sit there and try to fight, and if he did lose, now what? But he was like, you know what? I'm out. So
have you ever read the novelization for Revenge of the Sith?
I haven't.
Okay. There's a cool moment in that fight. Those novelizations for the movies are pretty cool. I think they take the script and also the whatever goes in the film, and then they hire a writer to contextualize it.
Because you hear the stuff that's going on in their heads, which we don't get to see in the movies, and that's one of the ones I haven't read. And I've heard other people say that.
So they're in that fight, the time where they're locked in that lightning melee, like the last where Yoda is like, I'm out. Like right before that, there's like, they go into Yoda's head and he says, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly what it says, but he goes kind of like, oh shit, this guy, this has been happening for way longer than I thought. Like this guy's, everything is in his favor right now. This is a way more terrifying being than I thought. And we already lost. Like, this is done. I can't really do any good here. And if I, like you said, if I die, then we're definitely screwed.
Luke and Leia are done.
And he's like, I'm not going to win today. So then it, it's over. But again, like, that's some deep stuff that I feel like you can feel when you watch it. But it's cool to have the lore to back it up or to give a perspective.
Well, and that's what I do like about, because a lot of people don't read a lot of the books, but I think again the books like that, even for the movies, even if you've seen the movie, if you read the books, you go in a little bit more. And I've talked about this many times on this show, but from a certain point of view. Have you read any of them?
I've read the original, the first one that came out, and then the Return of the Jedi one. I've not read the Empire.
I'm in the middle of Return of the Jedi now. and I've read, and I've also done the audiobooks, which I think is cool too, because the audiobooks are fun because you get different characters, and they make their voices, voice characters, and a little bit of sound effects and stuff like that, which is great. But again, those I think are really cool because, again, like in A New Hope, they're in the cantina.
Yeah.
And the two twin sisters that we don't know who they are. We just see them, but then they have a story with them and they're talking about it, and just different things like that. And Boba Fett being in the hangar bay when Jabba's talking to Han, all he wants to do is just take him out right now,
He's hot.
Yeah. So I think those are really cool things that bring more life into the characters, and other, a fighter pilot that we have no idea all we've ever seen is a helmet,
right?
Or someone on the Death Star that's pushing one of the buttons to help blow up Alderaan.
Yeah, who's having some issues with it. Yeah.
Right, right. Which I think is really cool. And again, it brings in more characters, but it also brings that lore, like you were talking about, and then gives us more information on it, which is really neat.
I think it also makes it maybe more closer to human. Also, because it's not just like, if you lived in that world, the likelihood that you would ever be immediately affected by the main characters is almost impossible.
Right.
There's countless people. So to hear stories from people who had a part in it, but weren't necessarily directly involved in the stuff that happens is really cool. It makes you kind of feel like, oh, this is a world. This is an entire world of people. Or, thousands and thousands of worlds. But
and I think that's what's cool with Andor.
Yeah.
There's no real lightsabers or fights or anything like that. But again, like you said, you're just this one guy with what happened. Oh, you're going to jail now, and you're going to be over here, and you don't know it, but you're making stuff for the Death Star.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's really cool where they talk about that stuff and bring that in, and it gives you, like you said, a human feeling, like, oh, okay, I could have been here and seen it on TV or something like that, because I forget which one it was they were talking about. Oh, it was with Cad Vance. And he was talking about, hey, we were all here in Los Palgo, and we watched the second Death Star get destroyed, and then we get a little clip of that, which is cool. So again, these are people that are living on this planet Tatooine, and they probably don't even know anything about the Skywalkers or that anybody came around here, but they're affected by that, but they're just this little person or part of the universe. Which again brings it more for us that it's not always Jedi and Sith and lightsabers and the Force.
Right.
You can be
and that it does matter. This whole, like you said, the group thing, or I don't remember the word you used. It was really good. Like the collective, is a huge deal.
Oh yeah.
Even in in the end of it in Rise of Skywalker, the only reason they do any damage is because people just decided to show up.
Yeah.
And that's a very Star Wars theme. People showed up, and people got together, and that scene is cool. The Cobb Vanth thing, because you wonder in that time, with all the, if you're in that world, all the mixed feelings about the Empire or whatever, that had to have been a huge hope thing.
Oh
to see because now the super weapon's public.
Right.
It had to have been a huge hope thing that oh, they were going to do something terrible, and we just saw it blow up. You know?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and again, I think even with Rogue One, they always talk about, what is this built on? It's built on hope.
Yeah.
So again, you see this Death Star blow up. So now, okay, hey, we're getting a little bit stronger.
Yep.
The bad guy's gone for right now, so we can build here.
Yep.
Which I think is pretty cool. Yep. And it's just what George has brought to us in the late 70s until now.
Yeah.
The good and the evil and the bad and the just the ugly and the beautiful and just everything.
It's built on very human historical stuff.
Yeah.
That we've all experienced in one way or another.
Yeah. So. And I think that's what continues to bring us and draw us into that.
Yeah.
And keep coming back,
Yeah.
But it also, you can step away and out of our real life here or whatever. But again, the stories are so good And I think that's what keeps us coming back.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, with the comic books and the regular books and and all these spin-offs and stuff like that. It's just really cool that it's continuing to build, you know, and you're always going to have critics. I mean, some people aren't going to like this or like that, but again, we can't change anything.
Right.
You know, so again, deal with it. You know, even if they do this Star Wars 10 with, you know, with Rey again,
right?
You know, I think it's still going to be great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe not everybody's going to love the story or whatever, but again, with if Dave's behind it, which I mean, pretty much is going to be behind anything Star Wars now, so it's going to sort of have to go through him like it did with George, which what I didn't realize back in the day, like all the books and the comic books and stuff like that in the 70s, 80s, and even sort of towards the 90s, all had to go sort of through him and Lucasfilm to make sure that they added up.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people that are crazier than you and I about this that they're like, well, wait a minute, you know, this was not part of this part here, you know, and he should have been 6 months older here.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, what? How did you know that?
They had a couple of big ones, like Chewbacca's death occurred like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And I think that's when he really reined it in on like, he made like a whole system for it. Like they had a different colored band on them.
And I think Legends and Canon sort of came out of that as well, you know, because you have the little bit of a different spinoff, you know, which it's okay because I think once they brought the world between worlds in, as much as cool as that was, that's one of my things. I'm not, once you bring in time travel, you can change anything.
Yeah.
You know, so I really think it was a great episode when Ahsoka was talking to Ezra about trying to bring Kanan back.
Right.
You know, he wanted to bring him back, and he's like, "Well,
She's like, then you'd be
right. Y'all
here.
would be dead, and he might still be dead too." But you know, he sacrificed, and obviously, then we know what Ezra does. You know, at the end of Rebels for everybody else because he knows what Kanan did, and that was his job to do that.
Yeah.
But I think it's really cool that she was able to sort of be like, nah, don't do that. Yeah. Because that's my big thing. It's like, he could have gone in and, I mean, he saved her technically from, from being, killed. But, would she have not if he didn't pull her out of there?
Right.
And go ahead.
I appreciate the mysticism of it too.
Yes.
To where we don't get an answer.
Yeah.
Like I would like as few answers as possible on the world between worlds.
Right.
I would like it to be, the way her and Anakin did her thing there. She had to get through some stuff.
Yep.
And so did Ezra.
Yeah.
And I think, and then I think Ezra saved everybody from the stuff that you were mentioning, like the time travel, changing everything. Yeah. Saved everybody by keeping Palpatine out of there.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly probably what he would have tapped into. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's just nitpicking.
It would have been crazy if he,
And I think it would diminish what Ezra did in there to like say, we can go back and, mess with stuff all we want.
Yeah.
I enjoy when the Force has a little bit of unknown to it.
Yeah.
And it's not maybe over explained.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's the cool thing about the Mortis gods.
Yeah.
We don't know what Balin's going there for. Hopefully we'll find out at some point.
Yep.
But, again, there's this huge thing that's right there, in front of us.
I mean, reality altering too, possibly.
Yeah.
If he, for whatever reason he's there, like you said, we don't really know.
Right. But, right. And there's so much talk about, Ahsoka being the sister now.
Yeah. Because of the owl.
Right. So is she going to come to fruition, and are those powers going to come to her and when they do this final battle or what, So again, I think, like you said, that's the cool thing about us just waiting for this new stuff to come out. And I think Acolytes is going to be cool.
I think it's going to be really cool.
Skeleton Crew. Yep. Supposedly Skeleton Crew is around the same time. Hey, y'all, that's going to wrap up our first part of the interview with Nick Powell. Pretty cool. Love talking to him. He's huge into the lore, so we're having a great time talking. Tune in next week. We'll have the second half of Nick Powell's interview. So I know we're going to have the rest of it. Yes. So R2 and Chewie are really looking forward, obviously, to the next interview. So stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. You'll get the notifications when these new ones come out. So, again, thank you all for hanging out with us. And until then, we'll see you on the next Star Wars Jedi Chat. May the force be with you.